skinny dipping with her idol. She insists her sudden paralysis is merely a sprained ankle from jumping a pool fence. Dr. House views her story as a medical impossibility. He enters her hospital room with a laptop and a pair of drumsticks. He plays a high-tempo Metallica track and orders Jordan to perform an air drumming test. He forces her to match the speed of Lars Ulrich. Within seconds, Jordan's arms lock up. She cannot maintain the rhythm. House reveals the physiological reality. Her potassium levels are too low for any physical exertion. She never jumped a fence. She lied to cover her tracks. As her condition worsens, Jordan suffers massive internal bleeding. House ignores the team's confusion and looks for the missing variable in her diet. He identifies the trigger: raw oysters. The shellfish carried Vibrio vulnificus, a bacterium that is typically manageable but becomes lethal in specific hosts. House diagnoses Jordan with hemochromatosis, a genetic disorder that causes extreme iron overload. The excess iron in her system turned her body into a breeding ground for the bacteria. The girl's attempt to hide an illicit tryst nearly resulted in her death. House strips away the social facade to reveal the biological truth. Her perfect night was a sequence of fatal choices. Chase goes to the gym 5 times in a single week. He uses physical exhaustion to hide the psychological weight of a secret. He lies to his wife, Cameron, about where he spends his time. Cameron notices the sudden change and follows him to the fitness center. She sees him there, but the suspicion remains. She suspects Chase is having an affair. She confronts their colleague, Foreman, demanding to know if her husband is cheating. Foreman denies it, yet Cameron continues to monitor Chase's every move. The marital tension bleeds into their medical work. During a critical scan for a young patient, the girl's heart rate drops and her blood pressure collapses. Chase and Cameron are forced to work together to stabilize her, but the professional cooperation masks a deepening personal divide. That night, Cameron finds Chase sitting alone on the sofa. She places a hand on his shoulder and apologizes for her accusations. She tells him she will love him even if he is being unfaithful. Chase can no longer sustain the deception. He looks at her and rejects the idea of an affair. He brings up the death of the dictator, Dybala. He stops pretending it was a medical failure. Chase admits to the murder. He looks his wife in the eye and confesses that he deliberately killed the man on the operating table. The lie about the gym is gone, replaced by the reality of a cold, calculated execution. A bookstore clerk stops a courier named James Saitos and holds up a textbook. The author's photo matches the courier's face. James was a prodigy with an IQ of 178 who published 35 scientific papers before the age of 18. He tries to dismiss the recognition and leave, but his hands tremor and he collapses. In the hospital, James admits to a decade of calculated self-destruction. He found high intelligence to be a source of isolation. He met a woman named Dara who loved him for his personality rather than his intellect. To stay with her, James decided he would rather be happy than smart. He began ingesting massive doses of cough syrup mixed with alcohol to systematically damage his brain and lower his IQ. Dr. House views this choice as an insult to medicine. He orders a whole bowel irrigation to flush every trace of dextromethorphan from James's system. As the chemicals leave his body, James's superior intellect restores. The transition is brutal. He looks at his wife and calculates a 9-1-point IQ gap between them. He tells the doctors that she is now closer to a primitive primate than a peer. He finds her presence unbearable and her simple conversation offensive. The happiness he traded his mind for vanishes instantly. James realizes he cannot live with this level of clarity. He rejects the recovery and reaches for the cough syrup once more. He chooses to permanently poison his neurons to return to a state of blissful ignorance. He destroys his genius to save his marriage. House stands in the observation gallery, deducing the shift in Cuddy's personal life. He identifies the signs of a permanent move. Cuddy is looking for a loft to share with Lucas, signaling a level of commitment House cannot ignore. Meanwhile, Wilson is at his breaking point. He has volunteered to donate a portion of his liver to a patient, only to be met with emotional betrayal. House watches his friends suffer and decides to intervene with financial force. He stops suppressing his frustration and targets Cuddy's real estate ambitions. Cuddy follows the rules of the market, offering exactly what a similar unit sold for months ago. House ignores the market. He contacts the agent, Bonnie, and places an aggressive overbid. He secures the loft, effectively stripping Cuddy of the home she envisioned. There is no dialogue between them, only a completed transaction. When Wilson walks through the empty rooms of the new property, he realizes what House has done. He asks how House intends to handle the inevitable confrontation when Cuddy discovers she has been sabotaged. House remains indifferent to the long-term consequences. He views the act as a necessary strike. He tells Wilson that a problem delayed is a problem denied. By purchasing the loft, House has turned his internal anger into a tangible loss for Cuddy. He has claimed the space, not because he needs it, but because he refuses to let his friend be the only one who loses. The acquisition is a cold, calculated move to protect his own territory. Dr. Wilson stands by Tucker's hospital bed and delivers a terminal diagnosis. The double dose of chemotherapy successfully killed the cancer cells, but it also destroyed Tucker's liver. He has 24 hours to live. Dr. House identifies a matching donor from a recent motorcycle accident. The blood types are a perfect match, but the victim's sister refuses to authorize the donation. She cites religious reasons, insisting her brother's body must remain intact for burial. All medical and legal options vanish. Tucker makes a direct request to Wilson. He asks his friend to undergo a high-risk living donor transplant and give up a portion of his own liver. House warns Wilson that the procedure is a life-threatening gamble for a man who might not deserve the sacrifice. Wilson ignores the warning and signs the consent forms. In the operating room, surgeons cut into Wilson's healthy body to harvest the organ. The transplant is a technical success. During recovery, the reality of the situation shifts. Tucker's ex-wife, who supported him through the entire ordeal, prepares for their future together. However, Tucker has a different plan. Once he is strong enough to walk, he informs Wilson that he is cutting ties with his ex-wife and their past life. He chooses a younger girlfriend and prepares to move away, leaving his family behind. Wilson sits in his wheelchair and watches Tucker leave. He risked his life and permanent health to save a man who used a second chance to commit a cold act of abandonment. Wilson saved a life, but he also discovered the true nature of his friend's selfishness. Mickey stands in a dark parking lot, finalizing a high-stakes drug deal. A loud noise echoes, and he collapses instantly. He is rushed to the hospital as a suspected criminal, but Dr. House doubts the profile. House orders an MRI to check for an adrenal tumor called a pheochromocytoma, which could explain a sudden surge of adrenaline. When that fails to provide a full answer, House performs a lumbar puncture to test the pressure of the cerebrospinal fluid and rule out neurological infections. Mickey knows his cover is at risk. He reveals the truth to House. He is an undercover detective. He has spent 16 months living among traffickers to dismantle a multi-state drug ring. He demands 24 hours of absolute secrecy. If his real name enters the hospital system, he will be killed, and the upcoming bust will be ruined. House continues the investigation and identifies the cause, Hughes-Stoughton syndrome. It is an incurable autoimmune disorder. Aneurysms are forming and multiplying inside Mickey's chest. One will eventually rupture and kill him. There is no medical intervention that can save him. Mickey faces a terminal diagnosis, but chooses the mission over his own life. He refuses to break cover until the police move in on the traffickers. Once the arrests are confirmed, Mickey finally calls his wife. He spends his last moments in her arms, dying from a disease that worked faster than the criminals he hunted. Mickey completes his service, leaving behind a dismantled network and a grieving widow. Skateboarding prodigy, Della collapses mid-stunt. In the trauma room, doctors feed a bronchoscope deep into her gasping lungs. The internal feed shows a total system failure. Her airways are drowning in blood. Dr. House traces the collapse to a recessive sickle cell trait that has quietly destroyed her organs. She needs a new lung to survive the night, but the transplant committee issues a flat rejection. There are no donors. House pivots to a forbidden protocol, a living donor transplant from her brother, Hugo. The medical facts are brutal. Hugo has congenital muscular dystrophy. His muscles are already wasting away, and he is expected to die by age 25. If he surrenders half of his lung to his sister, his remaining lifespan will be cut in half. He will lose the ability to use a ventilator when his own respiratory system eventually fails. Hugo sits by Della's bed as she fights for air behind a plastic mask. He informs her of his decision. He states that while she achieves greatness on her skateboard, he has spent his life as a spectator, coaching and cheering from the sidelines. By placing a piece of his body inside hers, he will finally be part of her movement. He tells her